The rain hammered against the windows like accusations. I stood in the living room, soaking wet, my clothes clinging to my shivering body, while my mother-in-law pointed toward the door with a trembling finger. "Get out," she whispered, her voice cold enough to freeze blood. "You destroyed this family." Behind her, my husband stood silent. He didn't defend me. He didn't even look at me. That was the moment I knew my life had ended. But 3 days later, when the police officer pressed play on the CCTV footage, the room fell so silent you could hear hearts breaking. My mother-in-law's face drained of color. My husband's knees buckled. And I finally understood why some truths are better left buried. This is the story of how I lost everything and discovered I never had it to begin with. My name is Maya Sharma, and for 3 years I tried to be perfect. Not just good, perfect. I woke up at 5:30 every morning to prepare breakfast exactly the way my mother-in-law, Savitri Malhotra, liked it. Parathas with the edges crisp but not burnt, tea with exactly 1¼ teaspoons of sugar, no more, no less. I learned to walk softly through the house so my footsteps wouldn't disturb anyone's afternoon rest. I wore the colors she approved of, spoke in the gentle tone she preferred, and smiled even when my face ached from the effort. I did this because I loved my husband, Arjun. Or at least, I thought I did. Arjun was the kind of man women wrote about in diaries, tall, with dark eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies, and a smile that made you forget your own name. When he proposed to me 4 years ago under a canopy of fairy lights at a rooftop restaurant, I cried so hard I couldn't say yes. I just nodded, again and again, while he slipped the ring onto my finger and kissed my forehead. "You're my forever, Maya," he whispered. "Nothing will ever change that." I believed him. The wedding was beautiful. Traditional, elegant, exactly what his family wanted. I didn't mind that my own preferences, the simple outdoor ceremony I'd always dreamed of, were quietly set aside. Marriage was about compromise, I told myself, about building bridges. The first year was hard, but I expected that. Moving into the Malhotra household meant adjusting to routines decades old, to unspoken rules and silent expectations. Savitri wasn't cruel, exactly. She was exacting, particular. She had a way of looking at me that made me feel perpetually examined, like a specimen under glass. "Maya, the dal is too thin today," she'd say, her voice pleasant but firm. "You must cook it longer. Maya, when you fold the bedsheets, crease them down the center. This way looks sloppy. Maya, a good wife anticipates her husband's needs. You shouldn't wait for Arjun to ask for his tea." I absorbed every criticism like a student desperate to pass. I took notes, mentally cataloged her preferences, adjusted my behavior. Arjun would come home from his job at the marketing firm, exhausted, and I'd have everything ready, his favorite meal, the house immaculate, his mother content. "You're amazing," he'd tell me sometimes, kissing my temple. "I don't know how you manage everything." Those words sustained me through the difficult moments. Through the times when I felt more like a servant than a daughter-in-law. Through the nights when I lay awake wondering if I'd ever be enough. By the second year, I thought I'd found my rhythm. I'd learned to read Savitri's moods, to navigate her expectations. We even had moments of warmth, afternoons when she'd teach me to make her special gajar ka halwa, or evenings when she'd tell me stories about Arjun's childhood. "He was always such a good boy," she'd say, her eyes softening. "So obedient, so devoted to family. That's why I knew he needed someone who would cherish these values, someone like you, Maya." The praise made me glow. I was finally being accepted, finally becoming part of the family. Then came the third year. That's when everything started to crack. It started with small things so subtle I almost didn't notice them. Arjun began coming home later, not dramatically late, just 30 minutes here, an hour there. He'd explain he was caught up with a new client, a difficult project, meetings that ran long. "I'm sorry, Maya," he'd say, looking genuinely apologetic. "Work's been insane lately." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? But then I noticed he'd started keeping his phone face down. He'd take calls in another room, his voice low and indistinct. When I'd walk in, he'd wrap up quickly, something guilty flickering across his face before he'd smile at me. "Just office drama," he'd say. "You know how it is." I didn't know how it was. I'd given up my job as a graphic designer after the wedding. Savitri had suggested it would be better for the household, and Arjun had agreed. "We don't need the money," he'd said, "and this way you can focus on building our home." So I'd let go of the career I'd spent years building, the clients who trusted me, the creative work that made me feel alive. I'd folded all of that away like an old photograph, tucked into a drawer and forgotten. Now, with too much time and too many questions, I began to notice other things. Savitri had grown distant. The warmth she'd occasionally shown evaporated. She watched me with narrowed eyes, as if waiting for me to make a mistake. Her criticisms grew sharper, more frequent. "Maya, the house smells odd today. What have you been doing?" "Maya, why is there a stain on the hallway carpet? Can't you be more careful?" "Maya, you seem tired. A wife must always look fresh for her husband." I tried harder. I cleaned obsessively, checked every corner, made sure my appearance was flawless. But nothing satisfied her anymore. The more I did, the less it seemed to matter. Arjun's father, Rajesh, stayed out of household matters. He was a quiet man who spent most of his time reading newspapers or watching cricket. But sometimes, I'd catch him looking at me with something like pity in his eyes, and that frightened me more than Savitri's coldness. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in late October. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when I heard voices from the living room. Savitri and Arjun, talking in low, urgent tones. I shouldn't have eavesdropped, I know that. But something in the tone, the secrecy of it, made me set down the knife and move closer to the doorway. "Can't keep doing this," Savitri was saying. "It's not right. She'll find out eventually." "I know, Ma, but what else can I do? It's complicated." "Complicated? Arjun, you're playing with fire. This will destroy everything." "I'm handling it. Just give me more time." "Time? How much time? She's already suspicious. I can see it in her eyes." My heart hammered against my ribs. They were talking about me. They had to be. But what were they hiding? I stepped back from the doorway, my hands shaking. That night, I couldn't eat. I pushed food around my plate while Arjun chatted about his day, his voice cheerful, his manner relaxed. How could he lie so effortlessly? After dinner, I waited until we were alone in our bedroom. "Arjun," I said carefully, "is everything okay between us?" He looked up from his phone, surprise flashing across his face. "Of course, why would you ask that?" "You've just been distant lately, and I feel like—" I struggled to find words that wouldn't sound accusatory. "I feel like maybe you're keeping something from me." For a moment, something dark flickered in his eyes. Then he smiled, crossing the room to take my hands. "Maya, you're overthinking. Work's been stressful, that's all. I promise everything's fine." He kissed my forehead. "Trust me." But I didn't, not anymore. The next few weeks were torture. I became a detective in my own home, watching, listening, trying to piece together clues that always slipped through my fingers. I noticed Savitri and Arjun would stop talking when I entered rooms. I found Arjun deleting his call history. Once, I saw him quickly close a WhatsApp chat when I walked past, but not before I glimpsed a woman's name. Priya. Priya, the name echoed in my head like a curse. I tried to be rational. Maybe Priya was a colleague. Maybe this was all innocent. Maybe I was becoming paranoid, seeing shadows where there was only light. But then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday. Arjun had said he'd be home by 8. There was a family dinner planned. But 8 came and went. 9, 10. His phone went straight to voicemail. Savitri paced the living room, her face tight with worry, or was it anger? It was hard to tell. "This is unacceptable," she muttered. "Absolutely unacceptable." "I'm sure he's just stuck in traffic," I offered, though I didn't believe it myself. She turned to look at me, and the expression on her face made my blood run cold. It wasn't concern. It was contempt. "You really don't know anything, do you?" she said softly. "Know what?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again, shaking her head. "Nothing, forget it." Arjun finally came home at 11:30. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair disheveled. He smelled of perfume, not mine. "Where were you?" Savitri demanded before I could say anything. "Meeting ran late," he said, not meeting anyone's eyes. "I'm exhausted. Can we not do this now?" He brushed past us and headed to the bedroom. I followed, my heart pounding. "Arjun, your mother asked you a question. Where were you really?" He turned on me, and for the first time since we'd married, I saw genuine anger in his face. "Why are you interrogating me like I'm a criminal? I said I was at a meeting. Do you want me to bring you receipts? Witnesses?" I stepped back, shocked. I was worried. "Well, I don't need you monitoring my every move." He ran a hand through his hair, his voice softening slightly. "Sorry, I'm just tired. Let's go to bed." But I couldn't sleep that night. I lay beside him, listening to his breathing, wondering who this man was. The Arjun I'd fallen in love with had been kind, considerate, gentle. This person, sharp-edged and secretive, was a stranger. Over the next 2 weeks, things deteriorated rapidly. Small items began disappearing from the house. Savitri's gold earrings, cash from Rajesh's wallet, a silver photo frame from the mantel. And somehow, every time something went missing, suspicion fell on me. "Maya, have you seen my earrings?" Savitri asked one morning, her voice deceptively calm. "No, I haven't. When did you last see them?" "They were on my dresser 2 days ago. Now they're gone." She paused. "You were cleaning my room yesterday, weren't you?" The implication hung in the air like poison gas. "Yes, but I didn't take anything. I would never." "I'm not accusing you, Maya. I'm just asking." But her eyes said something entirely different. When the cash disappeared from Rajesh's wallet, the questions became more pointed. When the photo frame vanished, Savitri stopped asking questions altogether. She simply looked at me with cold certainty, as if she'd already convicted me in her mind. I tried to defend myself, to protest my innocence, but my words seemed to evaporate in the face of her silent judgment. Arjun said nothing. He neither defended me nor accused me. He just grew more distant, more absent, spending longer hours away from home. I felt myself drowning, unable to breathe, unable to escape the tightening noose of suspicion. Then came the final day, the day everything exploded. November 14th. I'll never forget that date. I was in the kitchen making tea when Savitri walked in, her face pale and her hands trembling. Behind her was Rajesh, looking confused, and Arjun, his expression unreadable. "My jewelry box," Savitri said, her voice shaking. "It's gone, the entire box, with everything, my wedding jewelry, my grandmother's necklace, everything." My stomach dropped. When? "Don't play innocent with me." Her voice cracked like a whip. "I checked this morning. Everything was there. I went out for exactly 2 hours for temple. You were the only one home." "I didn't touch your jewelry, I swear." "Then where is it? Did it grow legs and walk away?" "I don't know. Maybe someone broke in." "The doors were locked. The windows were locked. There's no sign of forced entry." She stepped closer, tears streaming down her face now. "How could you do this to us, after everything we've done for you?" "I didn't do anything." I turned to Arjun desperately. Tell her I wouldn't do this." But he just stood there, his jaw tight, saying nothing. "Arjun," my voice broke. "Please, you know me, you know I couldn't." "I don't know what to think anymore, Maya." His words were quiet, but they hit like sledgehammers. "Too many things have gone missing, too many coincidences." "Coincidences? You think I'm a thief?" "I think," he said slowly, meeting my eyes finally, "that maybe we made a mistake. Maybe we don't know each other as well as we thought." The room tilted. The floor seemed to shift beneath my feet. "Get out," Savitri whispered. I stared at her, unable to process the words. "Get out of my house, now. This is my home." "This is my house," she screamed. "You are not my daughter-in-law, you're a thief. A snake we took into our home. Get out before I call the police." The world went silent, except for the ringing in my ears. "Arjun," I whispered one last time. He turned away. That's when something inside me shattered. Not broke, shattered. Into such tiny pieces I knew I'd never put them back together. I walked to our bedroom like a ghost, pulled out a bag, threw in some clothes, not really seeing what I was packing. My hands moved automatically while my mind screamed, "This isn't real, this isn't happening, this can't be real." Behind me, I heard Savitri sobbing, Rajesh trying to calm her, Arjun's footsteps walking away. 20 minutes later, I stood at the front door. Outside, rain poured from a dark sky, as if the universe itself was crying. "Go," Savitri said from behind me, her voice hoarse, "and don't ever come back." I stepped out into the rain. The door slammed shut behind me with a finality that echoed through my bones. I had nowhere to go. My parents had passed away years ago. My few friends had drifted away after marriage. I'd been so consumed with being the perfect wife, I'd neglected every other relationship. I was alone, completely, devastatingly alone. I walked without direction, my bag growing heavier with each step, rain soaking through my clothes until I couldn't tell where the water ended and my tears began. Eventually, I found myself at a cheap hotel, the kind with flickering neon signs and stained carpets. I paid for a room with the little cash I had in my purse and collapsed onto the bed. That night, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, replaying Everett. Hing, trying to understand how my life had disintegrated so completely. What had I done wrong? How had I become the villain in a story where I'd tried so hard to be good? The questions circled endlessly, eating me alive. I might have stayed in that hotel room forever, slowly fading into nothing, if not for one phone call. 3 days after I was thrown out, my phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello," my voice was raspy from disuse. "Is this Maya Sharma?" A man's voice, formal and cautious. "Yes." "This is Inspector Verma from the district police station. We need you to come to the station. There's been a development regarding your case." "My case? What case? I didn't file any." "Your mother-in-law filed a theft report, but there's been a development. We need you to come in immediately." My hands shook as I got dressed. What now? Were they going to arrest me? Had they somehow found evidence I'd stolen the jewelry? The police station was a gray, intimidating building that smelled of chai and paperwork. Inspector Verma met me at the entrance, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a kind face. "Mrs. Sharma, thank you for coming." "Am I being charged with something?" No, actually quite the opposite. Please come with me." He led me to a small room where a computer monitor sat on a desk. My heart stopped when I saw who else was there. Savitri, Arjun, Rajesh. They all looked at me with varying expressions. Savitri's face was pale and shocked. Arjun couldn't meet my eyes, and Rajesh looked apologetic. "What's going on?" I whispered. "Mrs. Malhotra came to file a theft report," Inspector Verma explained. "As part of our investigation, we requested CCTV footage from the neighborhood. Your street has several cameras installed by the Residents' Welfare Association." He turned to the computer. What we found was unexpected. He pressed play. The screen showed a grainy but clear view of the Malhotra house's front entrance. The timestamp showed November 14th, 10:47 a.m. I watched myself leave the house, a shopping bag in hand, walking toward the market. "That's when I went to buy vegetables," I murmured. The footage continued. Minutes passed. Then at 11:03 a.m., the front door opened again. A figure emerged, female, wearing a dupatta covering most of her face. But I recognized the clothes. I recognized the walk. My heart stopped. It was me. Or rather, someone dressed exactly like me, moving like me, imitating my mannerisms. "That's not me," I breathed. "I was at the market, that's not me." "We know," Inspector Verma said quietly. "Keep watching." The figure, this imposter, walked away from the house casually, carrying something bulky under her dupatta. She walked toward a car parked 2 houses down. When she reached the car, she lowered the dupatta slightly to look around. Inspector Verma paused the footage and zoomed in on the face. I gasped. So did Savitri. Because the woman wearing my clothes, imitating my walk, stealing from the Malhotra house, was someone I'd seen before, someone whose photo I'd glimpsed on Arjun's phone. Priya. The silence in that room was absolute. Inspector Verma let the weight of the revelation settle before continuing. We ran her face through our database. Her name is Priya Mehta. Does anyone know her? I looked at Arjun. His face had gone completely white. Arjun, Savitri's voice was barely a whisper. Who is she? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Mr. Malhotra, Inspector Verma said, his voice taking on a harder edge. If you have information relevant to this case, I suggest you share it now. Arjun's hands trembled. When he finally spoke, his voice was so low I almost couldn't hear it. She's my colleague. Your colleague, I repeated flatly. Your colleague broke into your house, dressed as me, and stole your mother's jewelry. I didn't know she would. I never thought. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of desperation I'd seen 100 times. But this time, it filled me with nothing but cold fury. How long? I asked. What? How long have you been having an affair with her? Savitri made a choking sound. We're not. Arjun looked around wildly, as if searching for an escape route. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, I said, my voice deadly calm. Tell me exactly what it is, Arjun. Inspector Verma cleared his throat. Perhaps we should continue this discussion with all the facts. There's more footage. He clicked to another file. This one was from a different camera, showing the side of the house. The timestamp showed various dates over the past 2 months, and in each clip, the same scene repeated with slight variations. Arjun arriving home, but not through the front door. Instead, he was sneaking around to the side entrance, the one that led directly to the garage and the storage room. And in several clips, he wasn't alone. Priya was. With him. They would enter through the side door, stay for 20 minutes or an hour, then leave separately. Arjun would come through the front door later, pretending he'd just arrived. My mind reeled. You were bringing her into the house, while I was there. The storage room, he whispered. We just talked, that's all, I swear that's all. Talked. Savitri's voice was shrill now, hysteria creeping in. You were sneaking another woman into our home, while married to Maya. It wasn't like that, Ma. Then what was it like? I demanded. Explain it to me. Make me understand how this isn't exactly what it looks like. He crumpled, his face falling into his hands. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. I made a mistake, he whispered. A terrible mistake. An affair, I said. He nodded miserably. The words hung in the air, and I waited for the pain to hit. The devastation, the heartbreak. But all I felt was nothing, a vast, cold nothing. Maybe I'd known all along. Maybe part of me had been preparing for this moment since the first time I saw him acting strangely. When did it start? I asked, my voice eerily calm. 6 months ago, we worked on a project together and we just connected. I tried to stop it. I did. But she kept pursuing me and I was weak and... Don't you dare blame her, I interrupted. You're a grown man, you made a choice. He fell silent. But I still don't understand, Savitri said, her voice breaking. Why would she steal from us? Why would she dress like Maya? Inspector Verma looked uncomfortable. That's where it gets more complicated. After we identified Ms. Mehta, we brought her in for questioning. She's confessed, but her story is disturbing. What did she say? Rajesh spoke for the first time, his voice grave. The inspector pulled out a file, flipping through pages. According to her statement, she and Mr. Malhotra had been discussing divorce, his divorce from Mrs. Maya Sharma. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. She claims that Mr. Malhotra told her he wanted to leave his wife, but needed a justifiable reason. His family wouldn't accept divorce without cause, so they devised a plan. No. They would frame Mrs. Sharma as a thief, small things at first to build suspicion, then something major, the jewelry box, to make the theft undeniable. Once Mrs. Sharma was accused and thrown out, Mr. Malhotra would have grounds for divorce. The family would support his decision, and eventually he would marry Ms. Mehta. The room spun. I looked at Arjun, and he was already looking at me, his face a mask of guilt and shame. "Tell me she's lying," I whispered. "Tell me you didn't do this." He opened his mouth, closed it. That was all the answer I needed. I stood up so abruptly, my chair fell backward. "Maya," Arjun reached for me. "Don't touch me," my voice was ice. "Don't you ever touch me again." "Please, let me explain." "Explain," I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "You framed me. You conspired with your mistress to destroy my reputation, to turn your own mother against me, to make me look like a criminal. What could you possibly explain? It wasn't supposed to go this far." He was crying now, properly crying. "It was just supposed to be a few small things, enough to create some distance. I never meant for Ma to throw you out. I never wanted you to suffer like this." "But you let it happen," I said, each word deliberate. "When your mother accused me, you said nothing. When she told me to leave, you turned away. You let me walk out into the rain with nowhere to go, and you did nothing." I was going to fix it. I was going to tell the truth after a few days, say there had been a misunderstanding. "So you could look like the hero." The realization hit me like lightning. "You were going to discover the real thief, prove my innocence, but by then the damage would be done. Your family would never fully trust me again. The marriage would be broken beyond repair, but it would look like circumstances, not your choice." His silence was confirmation. I turned to Savitri, who sat frozen, her face a mask of horror. "You," I said softly, "you were so ready to believe the worst of me. After 3 years of me trying to be perfect for you, of sacrificing everything to fit into your family, you believed I was a thief based on nothing but coincidence." "Maya, her voice cracked. "I didn't know if I had known." "Would it have mattered? You never really accepted me, did you? I was never good enough. And the moment you had an excuse to get rid of me, you took it." She shook her head, tears flowing freely now. "That's not true. I cared about you. I did." "You had a strange way of showing it." Inspector Verma cleared his throat. "Mrs. Sharma, I understand you're upset, but we need to complete our investigation. Ms. Mehta has agreed to return the jewelry. She's being charged with theft and conspiracy. As for Mr. Malhotra..." He looked at Arjun with disgust. "While his actions are morally reprehensible, it's unclear if he's broken any laws. That depends on whether you want to press charges for conspiracy and emotional distress." Did I want to press charges? Did I want to drag this through courts, relive the humiliation publicly, tie myself to this family for months or years of legal proceedings? "I need time to think," I said. "Of course, take all the time you need." He handed me a card. "Call me when you're ready to discuss next steps." I took the card with numb fingers. "Maya, please." Arjun approached me again, desperation in his eyes. "I know I don't deserve it, but please, can we talk, alone?" I looked at him, really looked at him. This man I'd loved, this man I'd reshaped my entire life for, searching for any remnant of the person I'd fallen for. He wasn't there. Maybe he'd never been there. Maybe I'd loved a fiction, a character he'd played until he got tired of the role. "There's nothing to say, Arjun. We're done." "Maya." "File the divorce papers yourself. I won't contest it. I just want away from all of you." I walked toward the door. "Wait," Savitri's voice stopped me. "Where will you go? What will you do?" I turned back, and maybe she saw something in my face that frightened her, because she flinched. "That's no longer your concern," I said. "You wanted me out of your house. You wanted me out of your family. Congratulations. You got what you wanted." I left the police station and walked into bright afternoon sunlight that hurt my eyes. For a moment, I just stood there, breathing, feeling the sun on my face, listening to the sounds of the city around me. I was free. It didn't feel like freedom yet. It felt like falling through empty space, with no idea when or where I'd land. But I was free. The next few weeks were surreal. The story leaked somehow, probably from someone at the police station. Within days, it was all over local social media. Wife framed by husband and mistress in elaborate jewelry theft scheme. The headlines were sensational, lurid, invasive. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, acquaintances offering sympathy that felt more like curiosity. I turned off my phone. I stayed in that cheap hotel for a week, then found a small apartment in a different part of the city. One room, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom with permanent water stains. It was perfect. Arjun tried to contact me repeatedly. Letters, emails, messages through mutual acquaintances. I ignored them all. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Kavita who took my case pro bono after hearing the story, handled all communication. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly quick. Arjun didn't contest anything. I think he was terrified I'd press criminal charges, drag everything through court, ruin his reputation completely. I took what was legally mine and walked away. It wasn't much. I'd given up my career, had no savings of my own, but Kavita fought hard and got me a decent settlement. Priya was convicted of theft and served 6 months in jail. Her career was destroyed. Last I heard, she'd moved to another city, trying to rebuild her life. I didn't feel satisfaction at her punishment. I didn't feel much of anything. 2 months after everything exploded, I was sitting in my apartment trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life when there was a knock on my door. I almost didn't answer, but something, curiosity maybe, or the hope that one day I'd feel something again besides numbness, made me open it. Savitri stood there. She looked terrible, older, thinner. Her eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. "Maya," she said softly, "please, can we talk?" Every instinct screamed at me to slam the door, but I stepped aside and let her in. She stood in the center of my small apartment, looking around at the bare walls, the minimal furniture, the evidence of a life stripped down to essentials. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know it's not enough. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I need to say it. I'm so sorry." I crossed my arms, waiting. "I failed you," she continued, tears streaming down her face now. "As a mother-in-law, as a human being, I failed you completely. You tried so hard to be part of our family, and I held you at arm's length. I tested you constantly, looked for flaws, waited for you to prove you weren't good enough." "Why?" I asked, the first word I'd spoken since letting her in. "Because I was afraid," she said simply. "Afraid of losing my son, afraid of change, afraid of sharing him with someone else. So I made it impossible for you to succeed. And when things started going missing, her voice broke. I wanted to believe you were the problem, because if you were the problem, then I was justified in never fully accepting you." She sank onto my cheap plastic chair, covering her face with her hands. "But you weren't the problem, I was, and my son." "God help me, my son," she sobbed. I raised him to be a good man, and he did this. He destroyed you. Because somewhere along the way, I taught him that his wants mattered more than anyone else's humanity." I sat down across from her, watching this woman fall apart, and felt the first crack in the ice around my heart. "Rajesh left me," she said suddenly, looking up. "Did you know that?" I blinked in surprise. Quiet, passive Rajesh. "He said he couldn't stay married to someone who could be so cruel, so blind. He said watching what we did to you, what he allowed to happen by staying silent, it broke something in him." She laughed bitterly. "So now I know how it feels, to have your world collapse, to realize you destroyed something precious with your own hands. I'm not here for your pity, Savitri. I know, I'm not asking for pity, I'm not even asking for forgiveness. She stood, wiping her eyes. "I needed you to know that I see it now, what we took from you, what we destroyed. And if there's anything at all I can do to help you rebuild." "There isn't," I said quietly. "The best thing you can do for me is leave me alone. Let me start over without any connection to that life, that family, that version of myself that tried so hard to disappear to make everyone else comfortable." She nodded slowly. "I understand." At the door, she paused. "For what it's worth, Maya, you deserved better. You deserved so much better than all of us." After she left, I sat in the silence of my apartment for a long time. She was right. I had deserved better. But more importantly, I still deserved better. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the faintest spark of something in my chest. Not happiness, not yet, but maybe, possibility. 3 months later, I was rebuilding my graphic design career, taking freelance jobs, slowly reconnecting with old clients who welcomed me back without judgment. One evening, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "You deserve to know the whole truth." My finger hovered over the delete button, but curiosity won. The email was from Rajesh. "Dear Maya, I hope this message finds you healing. I've wanted to reach out many times but respected your need for space. However, there's something you should know, something even the police investigation didn't uncover. I've been going through Arjun's old things, trying to understand how my son became someone I don't recognize. I found his laptop, and on it, I found files that changed my understanding of everything. The affair with Priya started 6 months ago, as you know. But what you don't know is that Arjun had already been planning to divorce you before he ever met her. The affair accelerated his timeline, but it wasn't the cause. I found a document dated 8 months ago titled Exit Strategy. It was a detailed plan for ending your marriage. He'd consulted lawyers, explored his options, calculated financial implications. But he was worried about 2 things, his reputation and my reaction. You see, Maya, I had always told him that divorce was unacceptable in our family unless there was serious cause, abuse, adultery, or fundamental incompatibility. I said these things believing they would encourage commitment, but instead, I taught him to fabricate justifications. He didn't fall into an affair and then think to frame you. He met Priya and saw an opportunity to implement a plan he'd already created. Why did he want to divorce you at all? According to his notes, you had become too accommodating, too eager to please, no longer interesting. He missed the independent, creative woman you were before marriage. Apparently, watching you subsume yourself to meet our family's expectations made him lose respect for you. The cruelty of this takes my breath away. We demanded you change everything about yourself, and when you did, he blamed you for it. I thought you should know this. Not to hurt you further, but because you blamed yourself, I'm sure. You wondered what you did wrong, how you failed. You need to know you didn't fail. The system was rigged against you from the start. With regret and sorrow, Rajesh. I read the email 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and walked to my window, looking out at the city lights. A strange emotion bubbled up inside me. Not rage, not pain. Laughter. I laughed until tears streamed down my face, great gasping laughs that bent me double. Because it was so absurd, so perfectly, terribly absurd. I'd destroyed myself trying to be what they wanted, and the very act of succeeding had made me undesirable. There was no winning. There had never been any winning. And somehow, knowing that set me free in a way nothing else had. I couldn't have saved that marriage by trying harder or being different. It was doomed the moment I believed I needed to earn my place in that family. I wiped my eyes, still chuckling, and made a desist. Ian. I wouldn't be that person anymore, the one who twisted herself into shapes to fit other people's expectations. From now on, I would be unapologetically, messily, imperfectly myself. And if that wasn't enough for someone, they could leave. I'd survive it. I'd already survived the worst. 6 months after the CCTV footage revealed the truth, I sat in a coffee shop reviewing a potential client's design brief. Maya. I looked up and froze. Arjun stood there, looking nervous and hopeful in a way that would have moved me once. Now, I felt nothing but mild curiosity. "Can I sit?" he asked. I gestured to the empty chair. He sat, fidgeting with his coffee cup. "You look good, really good, different." I'd cut my hair short, dyed it a rich burgundy. I wore clothes I actually liked, bright colors, bold patterns, things Savitri had always said were too much. I looked like myself again, finally. "What do you want, Arjun?" "I wanted to see how you're doing. and to apologize. Properly apologize, not the half-hearted attempts I made before. Okay, I'm listening. He took a deep breath. What I did to you was unforgivable. I was a coward. I lied, manipulated, and destroyed your trust in the worst possible way. I blamed you for my own failures, and I let my family treat you terribly because it was easier than standing up for you. You deserved so much better, and I— His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Maya. I'm so deeply, truly sorry. I nodded slowly. Thank you for saying that. Is there any chance— He looked at me with desperate eyes. Any chance you could forgive me? Not forget, I don't expect that, but maybe eventually forgive. I considered the question seriously. Maybe someday, but Arjun, that forgiveness won't be for you. It'll be for me, so I can let go of the last bits of anger and move forward completely. That's fair. He stared into his coffee. I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did, trying to become someone better. I hope you succeed. I really do. Not for me, but for whoever comes after me, and for yourself. There won't be anyone after you. I can't even imagine. You'll move on eventually. People do. I closed my laptop. But Arjun, this can't become a thing where we meet for coffee and process our past. I need to move forward, and I can't do that with you in my life, even peripherally. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. I understand. He stood to leave, then paused. Maya, that person you were when we first met, creative, independent, full of fire, she's back. I can see her. And I'm glad. That's who you were always meant to be. After he left, I sat there for a long moment. Then I opened my laptop and got back to work. I had designs to create, clients to impress, a life to build. And for the first time in years, that life was entirely, gloriously mine. Epilogue, 1 year later. The gallery opening was small but well attended. My first solo show, a collection of digital art pieces exploring themes of identity, transformation, and rebirth. I stood near the entrance, watching people examine my work, hearing their discussions and interpretations. Some pieces were abstract explosions of color. Others were stark, haunting portraits of faceless figures. The centerpiece was called The Woman in the Mirror. It showed a figure fragmenting into hundreds of pieces, then reassembling into a new form, different but whole. It's powerful, a voice said beside me. I turned to find a man about my age, with kind eyes and an easy smile. Thank you, I said. I'm Rohan. I work at the Arts Foundation that helped sponsor this exhibition. Maya, but you probably knew that. He laughed. I did. Your work is extraordinary. The way you capture transformation, it feels lived in, real. We talked for an hour. About art, about life, about the ways we break and remake ourselves. When the gallery closed and people filtered out, he handed me his card. I'd love to take you to dinner sometime, if you're interested. No pressure. I looked at the card, then at him. A year ago, I would have immediately worried about what accepting would mean, whether I was ready, whether I'd disappoint him somehow. Now I just smiled. I'd like that. As I walked home that night, I passed by a building with security cameras mounted on its facade. I stopped, looking up at them. Those cameras, similar to the ones that had captured the truth about my marriage, had saved me. But they'd also revealed something more important. They'd shown me that reality exists independent of what people choose to believe. That truth has a stubborn persistence, even when buried under lies. My truth had been buried under expectations, manipulation, and my own desperate need to be accepted. But it had survived, waited, and when the moment came, it had emerged, undeniable and clear. I was that truth, the person I'd been trying to rediscover for so long. And I was never going to burr. Why her again? Final reflection. Late that night, I wrote in my journal, a habit I'd picked up in therapy. They say suffering changes you. That trauma reshapes your soul into something harder, darker, more closed off. But that's not the whole truth. Yes, what happened to me changed me. The betrayal, the cruelty, the discovery that people I loved had conspired to destroy me, it all left marks. But I got to choose what those marks became. Scars or tattoos, wounds or badges of survival. I chose transformation over bitterness, openness over cynicism, hope over despair. It wasn't easy. Some days it still isn't easy. There are moments when the anger resurfaces, when I wonder if trusting anyone is worth the risk. But then I remember, I survived the worst. I walked through fire and emerged, not unburned, but alive, stronger, more myself than I've ever been. That CCTV footage didn't just reveal the truth about my marriage. It revealed the truth about me, that I'm resilient, capable, and worthy of love. Not the kind of love I have to earn through perfection, but the kind I deserve simply by existing. My mother-in-law threw me out of the house, but in doing so, she set me free. And I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for that freedom, even as I mourn the pain it costs to achieve. I am Maya Sharma. I am a survivor. I am an artist. I am a woman who knows her worth. And my story isn't about what was done to me. It's about what I did with the pieces that were left. I built something new, something authentic, something mine. And that's a truth no one can take away.